everyone hear me? Okay, we're testing the system. I'm Karen Hiller. I'm a city councilwoman from District 1 in Topeka, and this is our Social Services Grant Committee meeting. I will let my colleagues introduce themselves, and then just to help everyone present, especially those of us with masks or that are looking at a screen that has like 20 boxes on it, we'll go around and introduce ourselves. And if people would take the time, our secretary for the minutes is trying to grab names, because on the screen not all of the names are actually who you are. And if we see you, your name is really small. So if you would enunciate when you do that and say who you're with. Okay, first the committee.
Christina Valdivia Alcala, City Councilwoman for District 2.
Mike Padilla, District 5.
Okay, let's go through the staff that's here.
Corey Wright, Housing Services.
Rochelle Vega, Rotana, Neighborhood Relations.
Okay. And we've got Taylor, who's doing tech for us, and Liz all the way in the back, keeping the notes. Those of you who are guests in the room, then we'll go to the Zoom.
I'm Mike Spatafor, Mobility Manager.
I'm Catherine Carter Gibbons, Breakthrough House Incorporated.
Stephen Robinson, Breakthrough House.
When they speak from their seats, can you all on Zoom hear them? Okay. Let's start with the, oh man. Can you all see what order you're in?
We got E. May Do first.
Okay, Taylor's gonna point at you. So, can you do that, Taylor, for us?
Yes.
Okay, go.
Hello everybody, I'm Eric Maydew. I'm the Area Director for Kansas Big Brothers Big Sisters here in Shawnee County.
That was really good.
Next we have Kathy.
She can.
Hi, I'm Kathy Dotal with LULAC Senior Center.
Brett Martin.
Brett Martin with United Way of Greater Topeka.
Jessica.
Jessica Lynn here with United Way of Greater Topeka.
What?
Kay Hedquist.
Okay, Hedquist.
Speak up, please.
Hi, Carla Hedquist. I'm with Health Access.
Thank you. That's good.
Susan Harris.
Susan Harris, the director with the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging.
Nikki.
I'm Nikki Ramirez Jennings with Executive Director of SED Topeka.
Joyce.
Joyce Kotzer with United Way of Greater Topeka.
Tiffany.
Or whoever's using Tiffany's computer.
All right, that unmute. Tiffany Jarvis, the Family and Community Outcomes Director with Community Action.
Natalie.
Unmute.
Natalie. You unmute her? I can ask her to. Natalie might be away from her computer.
Let's just keep moving if somebody
Okay, Don.
Good morning, Don McSim, Voice for the Girls of Topeka.
I got them both.
Let's try that
We
again.
have two things going here. Yeah, you have like two audios on here. Are you on like a phone and a? This. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go. Okay. Something is happening. Okay, Rachel?
Hang on a second. Did you get Don McWilliams? Okay.
Rachel?
Rachel Bora with Harvesters Community Food Network.
Al Miller?
Hi, Amber Miller with Kansas Children's Service League.
ETSC exec?
Deborah Dawkins, East Topeka Senior Center.
Lisa Kane?
Hi, Lisa Kane, Executive Director with Doorstep.
Deb Dolsky?
That's going to get old.
Abdolsky with the Mirror Work for Success program.
Danny,
Danny De Leon from Catholic Charities of Northeast Kansas.
A little louder, please.
Danny De Leon from Catholic Charities of Northeast Kansas.
we got Bill Finder from the city here.
Yep, Bill Finder here, City of Topeka, Planning and Development.
Juliet,
Yes, this is Juliet McDiffit with United Way of Greater Topeka.
and I think that's it, because we already got Tiffany.
You did?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all for being here and for participating in whatever way you did in our social service grant process for 2021. Our agenda is pretty simple, and that's to go over to primarily, I guess, have Brett go over where we are today. We have the committee has in front of us a scoring sheet. We have in front of us a printout of the survey results. We have a sample of the letter that went out to the agencies. And our primary goal today, as I understand it, is to get caught up with what you all have done and to understand it. And then set, if there are appeals, to have you brief us on how many and whether there's any particular issues or things we should be thinking about or aware of, and get us prepared to go through an appeal process next week. Does that sound right, Brett? Jessica?
Good to me.
Okay, well, take it away if you would.
Okay, committee members, thanks for the opportunity to share today. Community partners and applicants, thanks for being here today. Want to probably start here with the survey results, so we move chronologically here just to give you a sense of what this looks like. So today I'll talk about the survey results. This is the survey that was sent to all applicants, and these survey results are related to the application part of the process only. So we will be putting together surveys throughout this process, but the first big part of the process was the application. And so we sent all of those to those organizations that applied. There were a number of questions that were sent out in this survey. Those questions were composed in large part as a response to the desire from this committee to make sure that we were asking questions that related to technical support from United Way of Greater Topeka, the customer service, which I know was a significant part of your ask, whether or not that customer service was courteous, timely, and professional is the wording in the survey. And then finally, overall, the application process was easy to navigate. This was a survey that was composed on a Likert scale of strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. And then there were opportunities for comments through there. So you have the survey results in front of you. We had a little over 40% respond, which is very good for survey response. We got a lot of good feedback from our respondents and wanted to give the committee an opportunity to ask any questions in particular about what we saw here.
Committee members,
Question?
did you get a chance to read through it? Do you have some questions?
I do.
Councilwoman?
Just going over, thank you, Chair, just going over the survey results. When I look at Sheltered Living Incorporated, it states here, the area for output and outcomes was a little confusing and somewhat difficult to navigate. So when an organization is stating that this is after they've already applied for everything. So is there any way to go back to extend that increased customer service and help them with whatever they needed help with?
Yeah, so the other piece that I submitted to Corey, you may not have seen just yet, is an email that also includes a communications log. In that communications log, both Joyce Kotzer is the administrator of VC Impact, and Juliet McDiffit, who has directly sort of overseen this process. The two of them included in that communications log every point of contact between both agencies and themselves, and we're able to group those according to topic and then the question and response. So I can pull that up here to see if within that communications log we have information from SLI. It's going to take me just a moment to do that.
While he's pulling that up, I would note that when I look at this sheet, SLI was a new applicant to our process. You kind of tell those by the ones that have 70 points on them.
Yeah.
So for having been through this myself as a nonprofit exec, you know, if you're not familiar with using outputs and outcomes, it takes a little while to kind of get it clear.
Right.
So that's a very reasonable
Comment.
Right. Especially from a new.
Right. And just extending that additional education and customer service, so.
Exactly.
Joyce, I can't pull that up immediately. Do you have access to that? It's buried in an email thread, unfortunately, and the Teams application we have this in is a little slow and will bog me down during Zoom.
Yes, I can pull that up. Just 1 second.
Great, thank you.
And I'm okay with not necessarily seeing the email. My intention is just basically for the public to be able to hear that is watching in other organization that we went that extra, you know, mile with the new agency and help them to familiarize themselves with the process.
Absolutely. I can tell you that we went over the RFP during the grant release meeting and answered a number of questions there, and we're able to put that slideshow in the resources section of VC Impact for all of those applicants, and that Joyce and Juliet were responding certainly within a 24-hour window for those, and any of those new organizations or existing organizations that did ask for technical assistance related to definitions within the application or otherwise were all served in a timely manner.
Okay.
But I will have Joyce just check on that to see if we do have communication with SLI so that you have record of that.
Thank you for that.
And we will also provide that communication log to you. Corey has that in the email that was related to the survey, so we'll make sure that you have that to take a look at as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other
Did you have one more?
Yes, go ahead.
Any ideas on, this is our first venture into this, so it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 9 that didn't respond. Any ideas of what we can do or what we can suggest to help increase response? I mean, I know you can't arm twist, but.
Average response rates to surveys are around 20%, so we certainly can't require organizations to respond, but we did send multiple communications to the applicants during the window where the survey was open, encouraging them to do that and explaining that this feedback was important for process improvement to make sure that both the vendor and the committee had feedback in order to make those improvements that were necessary for ease of application for those agencies.
Well, thank you for that. And I think, we, obviously, then it sounds like we can only do so much. And I would just put out to all of the organizations that we seek to serve is that they understand how important this venture is that we are going into right now, where we are putting customer service as a priority. So from my mindset of being customer service driven, it's help me help you. So and for those agencies that did not respond, I'm sure it had something to do with just how busy everybody gets, but just understand the importance of the feedback so we can get the pulse on any tweaking or anything that we need to get better at. That comes from the service that we give here or anything at all from the service you get from the United Way. Your voice as an organization is important, so thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, and thank you for mentioning that because, yeah, I would chime in that I really appreciate the feedback from everyone. This is our first year, and I appreciate it looks like the survey was as satisfactory to the agencies as it was to us, and that's what's most important. And so appreciate everybody giving us that feedback, because if we're going to continue to contract out this work, we want to make sure we're doing it right. Mike, anything?
No.
Let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, so the next piece then that we will take a look at is the score sheet. The score sheet. Just so you know, we were able to find communication from SLI, and there was a question that came in related to login information, and that was taken care of. And then there was just a question about the overall process, and that was answered as well. So just so you know, those were the two requests from SLI. Login and then a question about process. So let's take a look at the score sheet. The score sheet you have in front of you is a spreadsheet that has those applicants, those agencies on the left. At the top of that sheet are those who applied under emergency aid, and then below are those who applied in the area of prevention counseling. Across then in the columns, you have the various areas within the score sheet, and these are abbreviated questions or statements moving from left to right in the order of the score sheet. And then you have the total amounts received, the total points received, and the total points possible, the percent in terms of the score, the amount requested, then the award based on that percent score, and then the funding recommendation. A couple of things I will note here. As we did have a number of new applicants, their scores are out of 70 points because there was a 20-point question related to achieving outputs and outcomes in a prior grant cycle with the city of Topeka, and also past grant effectiveness. Those two questions, if they were new applicants, were pulled out, and their total points possible were out of 70. So their percent then was calculated out of the total points received, and then 70 points possible. For others, it was out of 100 points if they had an existing grant relationship with the city within the last 3 years. The other thing I will note here is that if an applicant did not receive the full amount of points for one of these areas, that is indicated in red. So you can note those. Finally, let me just say that in the funding recommendation column to the far right, these are the recommendations based on the number of dollars that are available, and that total based on the RFP is $434,904. The score cutoff for that was 83%. There were two organizations with 83%, and the amount that was available following the applicant that scored 84%. That amount was divided between the two, and you will see that there. At this point, Chairwoman, I will invite questions about the score sheet.
Committee members, do you need a few minutes to look through it?
Certainly.
Maybe a couple of minutes.
Neighbor Rowan.
Brent, Cheryl.
Question?
Yeah. Brent, if I could ask just to reiterate and clear it up for me. You mentioned that some of the new applicants, they would go on a total possible of 70 rather than the 100, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what's the cutoff for those in that category that 70 is their total possible?
We only calculated by percent, so we did not pull those out separately. So let's see. That would have been 58 points, would have been 83%.
Okay, thank you, Brett.
Yes, sir.
Along those lines, Brent and Corey, I reviewed and looked for my own answers somewhat last night, but where is the language about at what point we would fund new agencies? I know it's here.
It's on the priority sheet.
It's on the priority sheet.
It's also in the RFP, as on the priority sheet in the RFP, but the priority sheet, I did not bring that with me today.
The city will accept applications for new programs with the knowledge if funding is exhausted on established programs, new programs will not be funded. Applications will be scored and the percentage of their score multiplied by the amount requested for the total funding allocation. Last year, there was the cutoff for funding the existing agencies ended up being 90%. This year, it has gone lower, but I went back and there was no 90% threshold on it. And it may be that this committee has to set the threshold then, in that there are quite a number of new agencies funded, or the way this score sheet came out. Were you given any guidance about a threshold between existing agencies and new agencies, Brent?
No, we submitted the scores on this score sheet as similar to what has been submitted in the past, but we did not divide out those organizations that were existing partners and put them at the top and then put new applicants below. We simply ranked them based on percent score.
If I may.
Please.
I will say that there was not a 90% cutoff. It's just last year that happened to be where it ended. And there were a couple new programs within that mix last year.
Okay.
But it's just where it ended. The year before, I think it was 89%. So
Okay.
this year, they're saying it's 83%.
So it was the same methodology,
Yes.
even though we have this language? Just
Correct.
Wanted to point it out. We also have language in the priority sheet that we wouldn't fund less than our minimum grant would be $10,000. And so 4 of these fell below 10. They didn't ask for less than 10, but when the math worked out, and that's on our priority sheet as
So
well.
Would we have to change the wording then?
It's been on there before. In my experience, it's on there because the theory was that both on the part of the agencies as well as on the part of the city, to make it cost effective to have the grant and manage the grant and all of that, that it ought to be at least $10,000 to get the money and make some impact with it. At least historically, that was it. I just observed that when I was looking through. Did you have any conversation about that issue when you were finishing out the score sheet, Brent?
No, Chairwoman, we looked at the RFP and took the language from the RFP related to a minimum ask, and the minimum request amount was $10,000. And so if you'll note, there are a couple on here that made it through the EC impact process who had requested fewer than $10,000. That has to do with a process piece for us. The system is set up with the maximum, and so those organizations that did request fewer than $10,000 did not have scores that met the funding threshold. But we interpreted the RFP as a minimum request of $10,000 and not a minimum final grant investment of $10,000.
And I'm just reading off the sheet that the council adopts in advance. So that's just, we'll need to make a final decision on that before the grants are actually awarded. Like I say, we've had that 10,000's been in there for years. There have been times when the actual final awards were under 10. So we'll just have to figure that out. Both of you have served on this before. One thing that kind of caught my eye, we still are differentiating on the sheet between emergency aid and preventive, but we took the threshold, the percent between the two out this year, so it doesn't matter what the ratio is of emergency aid funded agencies to the others. So that went freeform through here as it was intended, as I saw it. So that worked out.
I have a question.
Yes. Please.
About the emergency aid. So once this is finalized, does that mean that they get theirs quicker than the other agencies
No.
What does that mean? That's
means
just
that
their
they're giving away
program.
money
Their
in goods
program.
versus presenting, doing
Okay.
activities or presenting.
Okay. And that's just that particular type of fund that they have.
The work that they do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I may, the CDBG portion of the funds that are set aside for social services, we use those in the emergency aid group. So that's only 67,000, but we would fund the emergency aid with the CDBG funds. It just makes it, the demographics are better.
Tie in with
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
So it's helpful for us, but I understand what you're saying. We don't have the 25% anymore for
Yeah.
emergency aid. Yeah.
I mean, that's, and at this point, you will do the split of actually
Yes.
which agencies get the money later,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. I noted too that one agency asked for substantially more money than our limit was, and that, that's the next to the last one on the list, and that United Way simply knocked that back to do a calculation of the award based on that 15,000 max for a new applicant, right?
Yes, Chairwoman, that's correct. Again, part of the process is the maximum within the system for it to catch is 50,000 because of Shawnee County Medical Society Health Access being grandfathered in at that amount.
Right.
And so that amount was not caught early on, but the calculation was made in that way, and that applicant was notified both by email and by telephone.
Yeah. Good catch.
I don't have any questions.
More questions?
I have one more, and whoever, Madam Chair or Brent, looking on here, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 recommendations for below the $10,000, I guess, minimum. Explain again to me why you would recommend that lower amount below that minimum.
Yes, thank you. For the recommendations, the threshold that we were using was the percent of their score multiplied by their request, and then going through the total number of dollars until those were exhausted. And so we did not use in the recommendations the $10,000 minimum, as we were understanding that to be, there was a $10,000 minimum request in the application, not a $10,000 minimum in grant award recommendation.
Thank you.
That's just how they read it, and so this is the first time through, and we'll address it. I'm sure we can work something out. I'm sure we'll get back and live with this sheet a little bit more, but maybe, unless there's something else you feel is that we should talk about on this sheet, we could move forward and see if there are any appeals. I mean, at this point, what we know is people thought the process went pretty smoothly, and that they got their tech and their customer service answers, apparently to everybody's pretty strong satisfaction. And this is how your scoring went, and so drum roll, what did people think of it? How are we doing on the appeals?
Yeah, so first of all, I will just say on that survey, as you look across there, every one of them was agree, strongly agree, neutral. There was one disagree. So we felt very good about that process. I certainly appreciate the support and the work not only of the committee but also of city staff. Of all of the applications that we received, we have 6 appeals that came in yesterday before the deadline. The deadline was end of business yesterday. For that, the organizations were given about a week to submit that appeal in writing, so they did that, and they submitted that to Juliet. I have that list of 6. I also have all of their appeal letters Following this committee meeting today, those will be compiled into a PDF and sent to committee members so that you will have an opportunity to look over those before the meeting next week, where those appeals will be heard. We explained to all organizations who did submit an appeal that they needed to be prepared to present orally next week if, in fact, the committee members wished for them to do so. I can tell you that in the appeals, as we're looking at this, there was sort of one really that was fairly vague. So there were no requirements on the appeal except to say that per the RFP that they needed to be submitted in writing and to explain the reason for appeal. One was one we don't have a lot of information on it, so you will see that and you'll be able to ask those questions during the oral presentation next week. One of those was related to organizational leadership and capacity. As you know, that's an area in the score sheet that was changed, and there was a question about the change and how that change was reflected in the application. And then one related to outputs and outcomes from an organization as they were looking at their past grant performance. And then one related to scoring in the area of budget. And I believe in the score sheet, there's no specific question in the rubric about that, but it does have to do with the resources to produce those outcomes. And so there was an appeal submitted in that way. One then that was just submitted that I wanted to clarify some terminology that they used within their application that then were reflected in scorers' comments. And I believe that's the majority of the very general subject areas related to those appeals that were submitted yesterday and that you will receive later today.
Couple questions for you. Historically, and I don't know how clear this was for you or in the paperwork, I don't think we changed it much though. Historically, the appeals have been, the agencies have been coached that the appeals are strictly on their scores. That they need to be able, the issue there, since this is a rating-based award system, is that they would have to challenge specifically certain scores with the idea that that score could be changed if in fact the committee was convinced that it needed an adjustment. Kind of the three-way test of the review process, of course. Occasionally, when an appeal has come in the past, the staff that's working it has gone, oh, you know, there was a mistake here, and has adjusted the score before it got to us. Was there anything in any of the appeals that struck you, or are they all coming straight through? Okay.
No, they're all coming straight through. I will point you to the examples of communication that you received in writing today. That is a 2-page document, and in that document you have the wording that was sent to all applicants related to the appeal. That's the language that the city has used in the past, and that we, again, as vendor adopting the city process this year, used. That language states the request for appeal should be made by email, and gave July 7th, 2020 end of business as the deadline. The application packet must be the basis for the appeal. Please explain the reason for the appeal in your response. So that's the language that staff has used in the past, and that we then used in our language moving forward this year.
I just wanted to clarify that amongst all of us. parties at this point. I believe in the past, when the appeals have been made, the applications themselves have been forwarded or accessed to EC Impact so that the committee is familiar with what the application said. Can we do that?
Absolutely. We are happy to include today with those appeals the full application that has been, that the agency submitted, and then you will be able to take a look at the scores on the score sheet that you've been provided and take a look at those different areas where the applicant was scored in various areas, and then be able to take a look at what they submitted, how it was scored, and what specifically is the basis for the appeal that they submitted to us in writing.
Great. I think in the past, actually, and each committee member is different, that what's happened is that the committee members were actually given access codes to EC Impact. So if they wanted to be able to look at ones that were satisfactory, that they could as well.
Absolutely. Joyce, I believe we can set all of the committee members up with login information for EC Impact and then assign them to this process. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. I would just need their email address and then first and last name, and I can set them up.
That'd be the easiest, probably, and then you wouldn't even have to print off a
Great. We're more than happy to do that.
application.
Thank you.
Particularly, I think that's, well, I'm 99% certain that's the way it's been done every year, but particularly this year with the first year of you all as a vendor too. If anybody has any questions, it lets them kind of scoot around and see what everything looked like right off. So that will help.
Absolutely. We're more than happy to do that. And once Joyce gets all those set up, you will also have her email address, and she can provide any technical assistance within the grant management system, EC Impact, should you have questions.
That would be really great, just to make sure we know who we need the TA from, right? TA or customer service explaining. So yes, be clear to us who we should call if we have questions.
I can tell you also, just so you know, all of the appeals that were submitted were from agencies who only submitted one application. So that will be easier for you when you go into EC Impact. You will not have to sort through multiple applications from one agency. The 6 that were submitted all came from agencies who had only submitted in one area.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Are there any further questions about this process?
No.
My understanding is that Liz will be back in this room. So the setup will be exactly as it is today, and the agencies one at a time will be welcome to come up. If board members, sometimes board members have joined the appellant agencies, within their ability that we have to see people here, we can, or people can Zoom to do that. So we should, kind of with this little hiccup with Zoom in real life, be able to do the process as we have before. Anything else?
I would. Thank you. Just want to say thank you to the United Way for all of their hard work in the new endeavor. Thank you to the organizations that continue to do the hard work, the needed work in community that have applied, Corey and staff, thank you. This is a new experiment, and it feels good so far. Little tweaking that's going to need to happen, but I really get a sense that we're on the right path here. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
If I may, to follow up, I would echo those same sentiments, especially since I've served on the committee before, and sometimes it seemed like there was some real hesitation to go to this vendor, not you particularly, but a vendor in doing this and working with the city. And I'm glad to see that it's working out pretty smoothly, and I think that goes to the efforts of our city staff who kept everything in place and made it available to United Way and to United Way's dedication to make this an easy and helpful process. So I'm pleased to see that taking this leap that we did, that right now it looks like everything's working out really well for everything. And that's really what we wanted to do, is make sure that we were doing things right so that things didn't fall through the cracks and that people were given an opportunity to really feel that we were working towards their goals as well. So again, compliments to everyone, city staff and United Way, and my committee members for working with us and working through this. So I'm really pleased with the initial feedback on this. Thank you, Chair.
Can you see me smiling behind this big mask?
I can see the grins. I can see up here.
Thank you. We have, before we break, we've got one person here in the room who would like to say a few words. And if there's anybody on Zoom, if you can, what do they need to do, Taylor, so we know?
If you can use the raise hand feature, it's towards the bottom, and then I can let the chair know that you guys would like to speak.
So everybody, hopefully people hear that. There's a raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen for those of you who are on Zoom, and we'd be happy to include you in some comments before we close. Right now, I'll turn to Mike Spatafor, and we'll let you go first.
Cool. Thank you. I just had a point of clarification I'd like to ask. Does the list rankings stand as it was presented to you, or will it be reshuffled so that the current agencies fall above the new agencies?
That is a good question. If I follow you, I'm not sure that any appeal has ever actually come through. So we have not, those committees in the past have not had to go reshuffle the numbers.
Okay.
If, this is a new process, if you set up the staffing anyway, there is a chance that these are recommended figures. They are not final until this committee makes a final decision to recommend to the council.
Okay. Thank you.
So we got anybody?
No, I do not see anyone, or just jump on and start talking. No, I don't think so.
Hi, City Manager. We see Brent there with his name anyway. Good to have you as well. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Whoop. You got somebody?
Nikki.
Okay, Nikki.
Oh, sorry, guys, I'll be quick. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry I didn't get my survey completed, but as an official, not really a grant writer, I wanted to thank the United Way team. Every time I called for assistance, I just want to plug in my 2 cents verbally. They were approachable, they were kind, and they really made me feel better about the process. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Going?
Eric?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the committee, Eric Mady with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I just wanted to clarify a point on our application regarding reporting. That's something that you guys can look at our scorecard a little bit more on. I just wanted to assure the committee that this year it was a bit of a challenge on our end, as nationally we moved to a new reporting database, and so all of our outcomes were delayed this year, so we apologize for that. It was extremely frustrating for us and the over 250 affiliates across the country, so we just wanted to assure you guys that our reporting that isn't typical of what we like to do. We tried our best to make it speedy for you, but shouldn't have any trouble going forward. We just wanted you guys to know that that came from a national level, in case you weren't already privy to that issue that we had. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
We were not. I wasn't anyway, so thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Going
Once, twice. Boom! Thank you. See you all in a week.
See everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.